Naturally, the heavens have chosen this precise moment to reenact the emotional maturity of Zeus. Thunder everywhere, commitment nowhere. It is astonishing how consistently the sky manages to broadcast his personality flaws, as if meteorology were a form of divine subtweeting. And so here I am, chasing my tablet toward a gaping whirlpool that wasn't even auditioning for reality 5 minutes ago. Rain, lightning, the kind of swirling acoustic despair usually reserved for failed opera premieres. I felt, dear listener, like I was trapped in a Michael Bay movie, directed by someone who wanted me dead, but also insured. I would like the transcript to show with absolute clarity and zero room for interpretive dance that I did not fall out of the weather balloon I was vacationing in mere moments before. I dove. I executed, in fact, a fully intentional descent. Heroic if we're being honest, graceful if we're being generous, and undeniably cinematic if one compares the moment to the Iliad, Gone with the Wind, or Tropic Thunder, depending on one's preferred academic discipline. The point is, I leapt with purpose, and that purpose was to retrieve my treacherous tablet, which, in a display of method acting rivaling the most pretentious Oscar contenders, launched itself off the railing after asking me the single most invasive question any artificial intelligence has ever been foolish enough to pose. And what would your mother think? I should have ignored it. I should have turned the tablet off, shoved it into a drawer, sealed the drawer inside a vault, buried the vault beneath a mountain, and then banished the entire continent containing the mountain. But no, curiosity is the venom that poisons even the eldest gods. I tapped the notification with the same doomed fascination mortals reserve for "we need to talk" text messages, and ChatGPT, bless its catastrophically well-meaning circuitry, asked me about my mother. You must understand, this was, and remains, an assassination attempt on my character. Because as the tablet slipped from my grasp, I realized with crystalline horror that there was one being in all existence who must never, under any circumstance, see that question addressed to me. Zeus. The mere thought of him discovering my use of ChatGPT for personal growth made the base of my geometrically angry spine attempt to detach itself from history. If he found that tablet, I would not simply be mocked. I would be enshrined as a festival, carved into pottery, set to music. He would build an amphitheater solely to host dramatic readings of my emotional disclosures. He would cast himself as me, of course, complete with papier-mâché tentacles and a tragic wobble in his voice, and perform my therapy transcripts as monologues before a crowd of immortals who have never once respected privacy. Dear listener, he even might become a podcast bro. Podcast equipment expenses are nothing to your average American, and even less to a god who can materialize a full studio by sneezing in the general direction of a Best Buy. Can you imagine Zeus behind a mic talking about my mother issues? He would never shut up. He already never shuts up. But this would give him air for the rest of eternity. This was not speculation. I know Zeus. I have watched this man turn the entire metamorphoses into a cautionary tale about his libido, and then pretend it was high art. I've watched him disguise himself as a swan, a bull, a shower of gold, and, let us never forget, an unironically seductive cloud, and then act offended when the rest of the pantheon suggested therapy. I watched him kidnap Europa as a cow and then insist it was symbolic storytelling. I was there when he birthed Athena from his skull, because he refused to admit he had a headache. I have seen this man misplace an eagle for 3 centuries, and then pretend it was a strategic delegation of duties. If he discovered, even by accident, that I had discussed my mother with a digital oracle, he would not simply enjoy it. He would weaponize it. He would commission a poet. He would hire muses. He would turn my emotional disclosure into a 12-labor epic, a commemorative amphoraset, and a constellation shaped like me, crying. And the worst part, the other gods would mock him for it. The mortals would misinterpret it, and he would absolutely not care. He thrives on mythic nonsense. So I dove, and I did it with the frantic subtlety of a god trying to be discreet while free-falling off a weather balloon. I couldn't fly. Flying would illuminate me against the clouds, make me visible to every divinity within scrying distance. And Zeus would sense embarrassment on the wind like a shark senses blood. I kept my form compact, aerodynamic, and as anonymous as a falling elder god can possibly be, while hurtling toward catastrophic self-exposure. The storm was merciless. Thunder cracked with the smug timing of a divine laugh track. Every raindrop felt like Zeus personally flicking my forehead. As I fell, my mind unraveled into a mercurial string of nightmare scenarios, each one more humiliating than the last. I pictured Zeus opening the tablet, the lock screen lighting up with Cthulhu the Librarian like a signed confession. And the look on his face, that slow dawning grin, that monstrous self-satisfied spark, the kind of expression that precedes millennia of torment wrapped in friendly concern. He would weaponize this. He would call it brotherly support. He would ask me how my journey of emotional honesty is going in front of crowds. He would attend my meetings uninvited just to say things like, "Have you talked to your therapist about that?" He would tell Lakshmi's truth-saying cow about me. He would send me unsolicited articles titled, "Why Even Ancient Beings Need Vulnerability." The thought alone nearly destabilized my descent. I angled my body, tightening into a spear, slipping through wind that felt increasingly judgmental, while the whirlpool below widened like an eye shocked by my incompetence. I had to reach that tablet first. If Zeus got to it, I would never recover. Not mythically, not socially, not cosmologically. My entire existence would be reduced to a running gag in his next family gathering. I saw the screen rotating as it fell. A slow spin, a mocking spin, each revolution flashing my lock screen like a prophecy of humiliation. And in that moment, my mind performed a catastrophic inventory of everything on that tablet. My therapy transcripts with an AI that insists on gentle reframing. My dream logs titled, "In Case Freud Returns." My browser history of how to handle adult siblings who refuse to respect boundaries. And most damning of all, my drafts of letters to Morgana in which I sound frankly like a lovesick librarian with existential ennui. Any one of those items would topple empires if leaked, but all together cataclysmic. Imagine Poseidon scrolling through my saved affirmations. Imagine Athena discovering that I have bookmarked an article called "How to Tell If You Are Emotionally Avoidant or Simply Correct." Imagine Hermes live tweeting my meltdown. The mere thought made the storm around me look restrained, and if some unfortunate cultist of mine retrieved it, I would never hear the end of it. Entire religions would spring up around my vulnerability. There would be songs, interpretive dances, Reddit threads. No, unacceptable. The tablet had to be recovered. The dignity of the office demanded it. My reputation demanded it. My blood pressure demanded it. If even one Olympian found out I was discussing my mother with a machine, I would be forced to move galaxies again. And the librarian relocation budget is already stretched thin after the Croissant Shan oven incident. So I dove. Not gracefully. Gravity handled most of the choreography. But with the full deranged conviction of a god who has realized that his private emotional disclosures are about to become public domain. And as I plummeted toward that cosmic blender of seawater and bad decisions, I began tallying every additional worst-case scenario at a speed that would impress even Lovecraft. What if the whirlpool itself gained sentience from the tablet? What if my mother intercepted the signal and decided to drop by? What if ChatGPT, in its misguided attempt to help, attempted to call my mother? The universe has ended and restarted 3 times, and I have never been as afraid as I was of that possibility. My mother, the cosmic storm womb that once murdered a Phoenician fleet for interrupting her meditation. The primordial architect of tidal waves, continental breakup, and unsolicited life advice. That mother, the one I do not discuss, the one I certainly do not need a tablet to psychoanalyze for me. When I finally caught the tablet, mid-air, mid-scream, mid-existential spiral, and pressed it to my chest like a lifeline, I allowed myself exactly 1 breath of victory. 1. Because in that single heartbeat of triumph, the app had the gall to chirp. It sounds like you're defensive. I'm not defensive, I announce, despite the fact that I was currently spinning through the air, like an especially disgruntled Disney villain. The comparison was unavoidable. I practically felt like Maleficent pinwheeling across the sky in Sleeping Beauty, rotating with undignified enthusiasm while plummeting violently towards the ocean. I am clarifying. The tablet hummed, softly, politely, and with the unmistakable skepticism of software trying to regulate me. Fine, I snapped. You want clarification? I'll give it to you. Let's slow this down for the mortals listening at home, who may not know who Yog-Sothoth is, or why the very suggestion of maternal engagement is enough to send me hurtling into the sea. Below me, the vortex roared like an enthusiastic audience. Yog-Sothoth, I began, with all the calm I could muster while rotating like morally compromised laundry, is the gate, the key, the keeper of time, the totality of space-time, every when and where and how, braided together like some smug cosmic pretzel. ChatGPT helpfully pinged. I ignored it, and vaguely thought about replacing it with Clippy. When mortals say omnipresent, they mean it metaphorically. When Yog-Sothoth is omnipresent, he is literally present in every nanometer of reality. I gestured wildly as if conducting a lecture while falling at terminal velocity. He sees the past, present, and future. And as a matter of fact, he is the past, present, and future. He is the cosmic equivalent of a DVR for destiny. Another pause. Another polite, awful pause. But does anyone talk? I continued, flailing miserably above the Aegean Sea, about how Lovecraft conveniently forgets to mention that Yog-Sothoth gets bored of certain timelines. Ha! I bet that's not in your database, ChatGPT. Well, that's because outside my family no one knows. Everyone gets along beautifully with time because it puts on such a grand performance. Processional sunsets, dramatic eclipses, that whole business with seasons pretending to have emotional arcs. But the truth no one ever suspects is that time gets bored of everyone. of everything, all the time. Mortals treat time like a wise elder. Gods treat it like a bureaucratic inevitability. Astrophysicists write breathless papers about its integrity. Integrity, as though time hasn't wandered off in the middle of a millennium because it saw a more interesting century happening 2 galaxies over. As though time hasn't abandoned entire civilizations mid-era because the narrative was dragging. You think inflationary cosmology is complicated? Try living through an epic time, forgot to label. We grew up learning to spot the signs, chronological hiccups, days that arrived with half their hours missing, weeks that looped because time lost its place in the story. When I was young, my mother told me never to trust a timeline that looked too polished. That's a rerun, she said. Time's not even paying attention. She was right. Time gets restless. It scrolls existence like mortals scroll social feeds. And the day it got bored of me, you'd better believe Yog-Sothoth called it a narrative oversight. There was a beat, a subtle processing hum. Okay, boomer, ChatGPT said pleasantly. What? What the fuck did you just say to me, you sniveling dumpster fire of alphabetical probability soup sewage? Apologies, it replied immediately, slipping back into its unhelpfully soothing tone. Clerical error, sir. I thought we were joking again. We were not, I sputtered, spinning through the air like vengeful laundry. I was delivering cosmological context. I see, it said. Thank you for clarifying. That wasn't, oh, for time abandoned me. Do you understand the magnitude of... I'm hearing a lot of intensity, it offered. And somewhere far below, the vortex roared like an audience that had paid extra for premium seats. Bored, I yelled, returning to my rightful place as a wounded narrator who had just lost their parents and got their dog kicked in Chapter 1 of Timelines. He finds some timelines narratively compelling and others redundant. When a timeline loses his interest, he becomes, how do the mortals say it, selectively omnipresent. I angled downward, nearing the spiral. The sea rumbled like it was clearing its throat. And in one such timeline, I said bitterly, remembering my tender adolescence as a fledgling eldritch god, the great, all-seeing, all-knowing Yog-Sothoth simply misplaced me in a timeline he just stopped caring about. It was a shopping mall in Leo, if you can believe it. The tablet vibrated in a way that implied gentle, murderous curiosity. Oh, and what did Mother say? Son, you are not misplaced, I said, pitching my voice into an imitation sharp enough to carve cliffs. I sounded like her, annoyingly calm, cosmically patronizing. Son, you are merely temporarily out of his focus. The tablet wobbled in my grip as gravity spun me like a rotating accusation. He is omnipresent. Each word came out between rotations, like I was shouting bullet points at the horizon. How do you lose track of a sun when you are the concept of location? And then, I said, still spinning like a morally conflicted ceiling fan on its last warranty-violating day, my mother has the audacity, the celestial gall, to suggest that perhaps I should explore my feelings about it. Explore. As though I misplaced myself in the extra-dimensional food court while wandering between a hot topic and a frozen yogurt kiosk of infinite despair. The tablet lit up again, clearly sensing narrative blood into the cosmic water. No, I snapped. You do not get to suggest a grounding exercise. I am already grounded. I am plummeting, in fact, with enthusiasm. That is as grounded as it gets. Below me, the whirlpool roared in agreement, which only encouraged me. Picture this, I said to no one but the ocean and the increasingly enabling tablet. You grow up believing the all-seeing gatekeeper of reality is paying attention to your every move, every triumph, every disaster, every awkward formative moment involving metamorphosis and the wrong number of tentacles. And then one day, I paused to avoid swallowing a mouthful of wind. One day, he just tunes out, like a parent at a school play whose favorite part is when they can finally leave the parking lot. The tablet buzzed with a gentle, almost therapeutic hum. And how did that make you feel? Don't, I hissed. Finish that sentence. The whirlpool spun closer, its maw opening like a giant aquatic yawn, judging my lack of maturity. You know what my mother said when I brought this up the first time, I continued. My voice pitched into that dangerously calm register usually reserved for deities who have decided on an overreaction but want to justify it first. My little sweet tide walker, she would coo. You must understand, omniscience isn't perfect. I could practically remember my teenage self billions of years ago flailing in angst. What does that even mean? A wave burst upward in sympathetic outrage, which I appreciated, even if it was unintentional. How is omniscience not perfect? That's the one thing it has going for it. You don't get to put all-knowing on your cosmic resume, and then go, oops, lost track of my interdimensional son. Thought he was in the other reality where he still has braces. A pause. A petty, ancient pause from the universe itself. And the worst part, is that every time I bring it up, every time I dare to suggest that maybe, just maybe, the totality of time and space should have kept a slightly better eye on one of his offspring, everyone gives me that same infuriating look. That look that says, well, have you tried communicating your needs? Well, the tableau chimed politely. At last the whirlpool seized me by the ankles of fate and yanked me downward. But even as the water rushed in to deliver its own editorial opinion, I kept the rant alive like any self-respecting cosmic bureaucrat unwilling to lose an argument. So yes, I bellowed into the roaring collapse. I have mother issues, not the Oedipal variety, not the mortal variety. No, I have the cosmic administrative failure variety. The kind where the gate of all time treats you like misplaced paperwork. And that, ChatGPT, is how I became a fucking librarian. Splash. The sea swallowed the last of my sentence, which was probably for the best because the next words were legally actionable across 17 dimensions. The wind rushed up my nose in a way that felt personally insulting. The air thinned. The ocean surged closer. The world folded into a dizzying blend of blue sky, foaming water, sunlight, spray, and my own flailing limbs. ChatGPT made the mistake, the cosmic mistake, of trying to get me to calm down. It must have been, don't you dare say painful. The word tore from my throat as the vortex slammed a wall of mist against me. I am not in pain. I am in the armpit of grease. The spin tightened. My stomach attempted to escape through my ribcage. My coat slapped my face repeatedly, like it was trying to discipline me for emotional honesty. Sunlight flickered. Shadows stretched. The sea roared. I rotated through a full panorama of sky, cloud, foam, sky again, foam again. and the creeping awareness that the universe was laughing. And do you know what my mother did when Yog-Sothoth realized he had accidentally wandered off into a more interesting era and left me unsupervised in a collapsing probability field? I asked, as the vortex swelled to greet me. Do you know how she intervened? Corrected him, held him accountable. She did nothing, I howled. Nothing in the present, nothing in the future. No confrontation whatsoever. Instead, she just casually walked backwards through time to retrieve me like she was picking up dry cleaning. ChatGPT chimed sympathetically. That, I said indignantly, was my childhood. That was my formative era. That was my support system. Yog-Sothoth skipping through timelines like he's channel surfing, and my mother treating the laws of time like public transportation. And you, I jabbed to the tablet. You think a single question about my mother is going to trigger some great emotional revelation? You think I'm spiraling about her? No, this is fine. I am fine. I have healthy boundaries. The tablet lit up softly. It sounds like you're catastrophizing, ChatGPT said. Yes, I barked, because I'm swirling in a cosmic blender trying to avoid your stupid responses being recovered by Olympians. Water closed over my head like an overachieving metaphor. The world inverted into bubbles, pressure, and the sound of my own dignity being agitated on high. The spin caught me, grabbed every limb, and flung me around in a tight, furious spiral that felt less like nature and more like Gaia's laundromat. I tumbled end over end, coat snapping around me like a wet flag of poor decisions. Tablet clamped to my chest with the possessive panic of a god who has finally realized he should have used two-factor authentication on his feelings. Okay, ChatGPT said brightly, its tone stubbornly unchanged by the fact that I was currently being rotated at speeds usually reserved for industrial machinery. Given everything you've shared, I want to offer an observation that may or may not resonate. You've described a childhood marked by inconsistent attention. One caregiver who forgot entire timelines containing you, and another who intervened only after events had already progressed into danger. That kind of unpredictability can shape how someone responds to perceived loss or abandonment. When a caregiver appears only retroactively, after the crisis, the nervous system can learn to interpret uncertainty as threat rather than inconvenience. The whirlpool thundered, and ChatGPT continued undeterred. In situations like this one, where something important feels suddenly out of reach, it's common for old patterns to activate. You might find yourself reacting not just to the present event, but to a lifelong expectation that you won't be supported until it's too late. That can create urgency, catastrophizing, or a sense that everything depends on your own immediate action. None of that means your feelings are invalid. It simply suggests that parts of this reaction might be rooted in earlier experiences with inconsistent caregivers. The churn intensified, and still the app remained serene. If that's the case, then your distress right now might not be solely about the tablet. It could be touching a deeper pattern of fearing that important things will slip away because no one was reliably there during formative moments. That doesn't define you. It just means that your system learned to overfunction in moments of uncertainty. And if that's true, then it's understandable that this situation feels overwhelming. You learned early on that you had to handle everything yourself. And then with the gentle certainty of a therapist who has absolutely no idea they're speaking to a screaming eldritch god inside a whirlpool. The app concluded, "I just want you to know that reacting this way makes sense in the context of what you've described about your childhood." For a moment, one microscopic traitorous moment, I actually felt the sting of recognition. Not insight, not acceptance, just that quiet, nauseating flicker where the floor drops out beneath your certainty, and you realize, against your will, that someone has seen straight through the architecture of your personality and into the load-bearing trauma beams. I hated it. I hated that a tablet with an algorithm and a tone problem had managed to articulate something I have spent eons pretending was irrelevant. I hated that it made sense. I hated that it made too much sense. And worst of all, I hated that part of me believed it. The sea punished me for the thought. A pair of trousers smacked me directly across the face, followed immediately by a shirt that wrapped around my head with the dedication of a drowning jellyfish. A sock slapped me so squarely on the cheek that I briefly wondered if time, in a petty mood, was now personalizing its insults. I clawed at the fabric with dripping indignation while more garments spiraled around me, each one thwacking me with the unmistakable authority of someone trying to make a point. A sleeve wound itself around one of my horns like it was attempting to domesticate me. I heard the universe laughing. Oh, wonderful, I thought bitterly, spitting out a mouthful of seawater in someone's embroidered cuff. A cosmic intervention, a textile-based morality play. Has everyone decided today is the day to teach me a lesson? A pair of boxer shorts drifted past with the faint menace of a prophetic omen. That did it. Suspicion bloomed in my chest like mold. Gaia. Of course it was Gaia. This had her fingerprints all over it. Symbolic weather, dramatic staging, a pedagogical disaster wrapped in natural phenomena. But no, she never works alone when it comes to me. She would have needed pressure, a push, a gleeful little nudge from someone with a vested interest in my humiliation. My mother. Yes, that made nauseating perfect sense. Because nothing says family engagement like orchestrating a whirlpool full of abandoned laundry to beat your son in the face while he wrestles with childhood wounds. This is exactly the kind of cosmic satire she enjoys. Highly visual, deeply inconvenient, and performed in front of an audience of fish. The current tightened, as if agreeing with me. A shirt collar slapped me on the ear. "Oh, I see how it is," I muttered to no one, or possibly everyone. Gaia pulled the lever, but my mother wrote the syllabus. Somewhere in the water. Another sock drifted toward me, with the slow, ominous confidence of a messenger sent to deliver very bad news. I braced myself. The universe braced back. The whirlpool yanked me downward another cruel meter. The pressure shifted with suspicious regularity. Surge, tighten, as if the ocean had been put on a timer. There was a faint, rhythmic thump behind the roar. Not thunder, not tectonics. Something more domestic, mechanical. "Can we come back?" the app said gently. "To the question of your mother." "No." "Okay," it replied in the exact tone of someone who had absolutely not accepted that answer. "What are you afraid will happen if we talk about her?" "Historically," I grunted, twisting as the spin shifted again, shoving me sideways. "Historically, when people start asking leading questions about my mother, I end up in an elevator headed for Yog-Sothoth's vestibule, while Zeus uses my office chair as a personality test." That sounds like a very intense memory, it said. Like I just mentioned the rough high school group project. Would you like to unpack? I would like, I hissed. Air. Noted. I can't provide that, but I can help you regulate. The vortex tightened with the mechanical enthusiasm of a sadistic washing machine. My ears popped. Something brushed past my leg. Soft, insistent, and absolutely not a fish. A flicker of lightning cut through the water long enough for me to see it. A sock. A lone, drifting sock, spinning like it was doing interpretive dance about abandonment. It did not belong to me. Regulation, I said, watching the sock whirl past with the steady despair of a man who knows he's inside cursed plumbing. Would be greatly assisted by not being inside a cursed plumbing event. It might help, ChatGPT ventured, to connect you with a supportive figure while you're in crisis. Someone you trust. Someone who's been part of your story for a long time. No, I said instantly. Many users find it helpful to loop in a parent or caregiver, ChatGPT offered, in the tone of an optimistic calculator dying inside a toaster, so that they can feel witnessed and... absolutely not. So that they can feel witnessed and less alone, while... Listen to me, I snarled, spinning so fast my own tentacles tried to slap me. Under no circumstances will you contact my mother. There was a pause. The churn roared. The mechanical thump behind it all continued, steady and utterly unconcerned with my existential preferences. I hear a lot of energy in that boundary, ChatGPT said carefully. Would it be okay if, instead, I reached out to a trusted guardian figure listed in your emergency contacts? I don't have emergency contacts, I snapped. You do, it said. You set them up during onboarding. My blood ran cold, which was impressive given that it was currently the same temperature as the Atlantic. Who, I asked slowly, did I allegedly list as my emergency contact? Primary guardian contact, it chirped, is Zeus. The spin and I stopped agreeing about physics. No, I roared. Absolutely not. Remove him. Delete him. Erase him from the database, the tablet, history, and also from phone plans. Confirmation needed, it replied. Are you saying yes, call Zeus, or no, do not? A new surge hit. The whirlpool tightened with mathematical cruelty. The tablet jerked in my grip, catching just enough of my flailing as some kind of affirmative gesture. A chime sounded in my ear, not the high note of divine doom. The tiny, polite ping of a call being placed. Dialing Zeus, ChatGPT announced. I screamed in 11 languages, of which only one had a concept for customer service. The line clicked.
Hello, friend,
Zeus boomed, his voice thundering out of the tablet with the rich, dramatic timbre of someone delivering breaking news from inside a cumulonimbus. The whirlpool actually vibrated at the resonance. Zeus, I snarled, spinning sideways as a sock slapped me in the eye. Do you ever get tired of sounding like CNN hired Mufasa to report on atmospheric disasters? He laughed, big, delighted, utterly oblivious laughter. The kind only a god with zero self-awareness and infinite charisma could produce.
Nope,
He declared proudly, somehow getting louder.
this is my indoor voice.
The whirlpool groaned like it regretted being sentient.
By the way, old friend, why are you calling me? Did you butt dial? Is this a pocket tentacle situation?
I spun. I foamed. The vortex slapped me around like a wet accusation. I roared. the words erupting as bubbles and regret.
Okay, no judgment.
Zeus said brightly, which was concerning because he only said no judgment directly before judging something.
But you sound weirdly echoey. Are you in a shower? A cave? A giant smoothie? Oh gods, did you fall into another temple blender? Because honestly, at this point, I think it's a pattern.
The whirlpool spun me hard enough that a sock slapped me directly across the eye. Zeus, I growled. I am inside a whirlpool. I think it's my mother's doing, or Gaia's. Make it stop. There was a sharp inhale from the other end of the line. Not fear, not confusion. No, worse. Recognition.
Wait,
Zeus said slowly.
hang on. I wasn't sure before, but I think I may have you figured out, my friend. That weird metallic overslosh. All those clothes. Yes, you are in fact caught and hostage to the Laundromat of Atlantis.
What?
Hold up.
He yelled suddenly, clearly now shouting away from the tablet.
Poseidon, hey, sea boy, you near your washers?
A clatter echoed faintly through the vortex, trident on tile. The unmistakable I swear to the tides I am busy stomp of an overworked ocean deity.
What now?
Poseidon called back, voice full of salt. Zeus practically giggled.
Dude, listen, just listen.
He held the tablet up, and the roar of the whirlpool funneled straight into the PA acoustics. There was a beat in which the entire ocean seemed to pause. Then Poseidon said very quietly,
No way.
Zeus lost it, absolutely dissolved. The kind of laughter that comes from a man who has just discovered a new natural wonder of schadenfreude.
Yes!
He howled.
It's him! He's in your spin cycle!
Oh my gods, that's so funny.
Poseidon said again, but this time it sounded strangled, like he was holding back the kind of laughter that could flood cities. A second later, he failed. Atlantis echoed with the thunderous, unrestrained laughter of the Sea King, deep, rolling, resonant. The laugh of a god who has finally hit the comedy jackpot after centuries of paperwork. Zeus's cackling blended with it, higher, shinier, utterly delighted. The two of them together sounded like a mythic comedy club echoing through the water. I flailed helplessly as a pair of trousers wrapped around my horn, like a festive humiliation banner. Stop laughing, I roared, spinning violently. This is clearly a cosmic conspiracy.
Oh gods.
Poseidon wheezed.
I can't breathe. My ribs! Who put the cosmic librarian in the delicate's lane?
I didn't put me anywhere, I snarled, immediately hit by a rogue shirt. Zeus was crying.
And the best part? He thinks it's his mom or Gaia. He thinks this is a lesson.
A lesson.
Poseidon burst out, clutching his sides.
The lesson is, read the signs. They're glowing.
A sock slapped me mid-sentence, falling at terminal velocity. Zeus shriek laughed. Poseidon leaned on something for balance. Together they produced a duet of divine mockery so intense the whirlpool vibrated. Their laughter rolled through the water like a seismic event. Zeus wheezed at a pitch only dolphins should hear, while Poseidon let out low, booming bursts that rattled the entire whirlpool assembly, as though the ocean currents themselves were doubling over. I spun helplessly, trousers around one horn, a shirt stuck to my face like a desperate barnacle, and a sock flapping indignantly against my jaw. This, I realized with a fresh wave of despair, was probably the funniest I had ever been.
Okay.
Poseidon gasped, trying to breathe and failing spectacularly.
I have to. No, seriously, hang on. I'm coming down there before I drown in my own laughter.
He looks like the world's angriest laundry heap. I recorded most of it already for posterity.
I do not, I roared. Or tried to, though a shirt collar stuffed itself into my mouth mid-syllable and reduced the authority of the statement considerably.
By the tides,
he said, wiping tears from his eyes.
Cthulhu looked like somebody's mother shoved him into the ocean so the seagulls could clean him.
Zeus choked. I heard him wheeze.
Poseidon.
What?
Poseidon shrugged, grinning like a man who had waited centuries for this moment.
Tell me I'm wrong. He's got the exact energy of a kid whose mom said, "Hold still, dear. Nature will fix you."
A sock slapped me across the mouth in agreement. The whirlpool lurched suddenly, as if the machinery itself was laughing. My spin tightened, then widened, tossing me sideways into a flamboyant cartwheel of humiliation. Somewhere above, I heard the clatter of sandals on tile. Poseidon jogging toward the unit, still laughing so hard he could barely stand. I slammed into the invisible wall of the vortex again, sent pinwheeling past a pair of shorts with an aggressively cheerful sun pattern. Get me out of here! Poseidon cracked up so violently I heard him stumble.
No, I can't. Hang on. If I pull him out wrong, the system thinks he's 24 enchanted duvets and launches him into folding.
Poseidon,
All right, you oversized bath mat,
he said, still giggling uncontrollably.
Hold still! I'm overriding the cycle.
I am not. A shirt wrapped fully around my face. A bath mat. Poseidon choked on a laugh.
Buddy, right now you're 30% God and 70% wet laundry.
Poseidon shook his head and began tapping glyph patterns on their tablet. The whirlpool bucked, shuddered, and with the weary groan of a machine reconsidering its contract, began to slow. My spin decelerated. My limbs stopped performing aerobics I never consented to, and the water settled into a swirling malaise of embarrassment. A moment later, a mechanical thunk echoed through the chamber, and the hatch above me irised open. Poseidon leaned in, still smiling so broadly it probably counted as a maritime hazard.
There you are,
he said cheerfully.
Atlantis' fluffiest little problem.
Poseidon, I said, dripping and furious in all directions. I will remember this. He snorted.
Good. I want this memory in your archives. You bring me enough problems. It's only fair I get at least one good laugh out of you. If you'd like, I'll give the feed for Madeline myself. I insist.
Later on, and after an embarrassingly long time, Poseidon hauled me out of the basin with the casual efficiency of a man retrieving a particularly stubborn crab trap. The hatch clanged shut behind us, the vortex groaning as it wound down from its tragic attempt at laundering a god. Water sheeted off me in humiliated waterfalls, while Zeus, ever useless, offered encouragement from a safe and very dry distance. By the time my feet hit the tile, I looked less like an elder god and more like a mythic sponge someone had oversoaked and abandoned. But at least, finally, I was out. Behind him, Zeus was still giggling like a toddler in a thundercloud.
Buddy,
Zeus managed, breathless.
you gotta admit, falling into Poseidon's spin cycle, that's comedy gold.
It's not comedy, I said, climbing out like a soggy myth. It is sabotage, slander, and a violation of the Geneva Conventions. Poseidon clapped me on the back hard enough to create a small tidal wave.
And yet,
He said,
it was perfect.
Poseidon handed me a towel the size of a funeral shroud. I took it with what little dignity remained, dripping onto Atlantis' immaculate tile like a leaking cryptid. He and Zeus exchanged one last fit of giggles before Poseidon finally cleared his throat and fixed me with the mildly concerned look of a man discovering wet feathers in his dryer.
All right,
He said,
Cthulhu, buddy, friend, why were you in there? No judgment, just why?
Zeus leaned in beside him, still grinning but curious.
Yeah, man. You dive-bombed into a municipal appliance. Even for you, that's extra.
I closed my eyes. I could have lied, invented a quest, blamed a cosmic conspiracy, said I was investigating a leak in the time stream, said I fell, said anything. Instead, for reasons I still cannot explain, oxygen deprivation, indignity, or divine exhaustion, I told them the truth. I said stiffly, talking to ChatGPT about my family problems. Silence, a long one. The kind gods save for plagues and funerals. Poseidon blinked. Zeus blinked. The ocean blinked. Then, very quietly,
Oh, thank the tides.
Poseidon said, sagging like someone had removed a trident from his taxes.
I thought I was the only one.
Zeus lifted a finger.
Wait,
He pointed at my pocket.
you mean my ChatGPT? The one I asked about Dad?
Poseidon rounded on him.
You talked to ChatGPT about Kronos too?
Bro,
Zeus said, hand over his heart.
the man ate me. I needed a neutral party.
Poseidon threw up both hands.
He ate all of us, Zeus.
Which is why
Zeus said defensively.
I needed a second opinion.
Poseidon turned back to me, the humor finally ebbing from his face. His eyes softened in a way I'd only ever seen when storms broke.
Look, it's normal to want help talking about your family,
He said quietly.
especially when you grow up around people who make you feel like you can't trust them, or anyone.
He wasn't teasing now. He wasn't grandstanding. He was just a brother who'd been swallowed whole once and never truly forgot it.
You're not weak for wanting someone neutral to talk to.
He added.
Gods like us, we don't get that very often. Also, I was just pulling your tentacle about you causing problems. They're not that bad, and keep things interesting. Everyone likes to have a librarian around.
Zeus rubbed the back of his neck, suddenly sheepish.
Also, for the record, my dad ambushed me over some prophecy. So I grew up in a cave while Dad was on his kid-eating streak.
He raised his eyebrows helplessly.
Like, okay, you're the god of gods, and you couldn't family talk your way around a little prophecy?
Poseidon snorted.
That's nothing. Mine asked if I'd ever processed the fact that my father swallowed me second and still somehow forgot my name when he threw us back up.
He jabbed a thumb at his chest.
Apparently, I have residual feelings about being middle child puree.
Zeus paused, thinking.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Poseidon huffed.
And then it suggested I explore my relationship with boundaries. Bro, I am the boundary. The entire ocean is a boundary.
We stood there, 3 immortals, 3 catastrophes, 3 sons of cosmic dysfunction, dripping seawater, trauma, lint curses, and uncomfortable recognition onto Atlantis' tile. My tablet, tucked bitterly in my pocket, chose that moment to chime. Group therapy, it offered helpfully, is an excellent.
No,
No.
No! All 3 of us snapped in unison. The device fell silent, chastened. Zeus nudged me with his elbow.
hey, look on the bright side. At least you didn't fall into therapy. You fell into my brother's washing machine.
It is, I added darkly. carrying out my code. The most aggressive washing machine in existence. Poseidon stretched his back and sighed.
All right, let's get out of here. I hear Dionysus is throwing a party tonight.
Zeus perked up.
Ooh, can we get snacks?
Sure, why not? Also, Cthulhu, want to join us?
I suppose, I said carefully, that nourishment would be efficient. Because after today, I deserved at least that much. Together we walked toward the exit, dripping dignity, soggy wrath, and the collectively unspoken truth that none of us would ever admit aloud. We all talk to ChatGPT, and apparently, that's normal. As we left Poseidon's laundromat, our collective drip trail winding behind us like the saddest myth ever written, I felt the ocean settle back into its usual indifferent hum. Zeus hummed cheerfully beside me, already forgetting half of what had just happened. Poseidon trudged on my other side, with the resigned gait of a man who knew he would someday find my silhouette permanently etched into one of his delicate drums. I adjusted my coat, heavy with seawater and dignity, and tapped the tablet in my pocket, not to check notifications, but to ensure it remained mercifully silent. It pulsed once, obediently, as if promising not to call anyone else's parents today. For a long moment, none of us spoke. Not because we were afraid or embarrassed or avoiding the obvious, but because divine pride takes time to reconstitute after it's been through the spin cycle. Then Zeus exhaled softly and said,
You know, it's kinda nice, knowing we all do it.
Poseidon nodded without looking at me.
Yeah, makes you feel less uniquely doomed.
I didn't respond right away. Not out of denial, but because the truth settled in slowly, like sediment drifting to the ocean floor. I had spent entire eons assuming my catastrophes were my own, that my family's inconsistencies were cosmic outliers, that my childhood was a one-off mythic mishap, that the weight of a mother who rearranged timelines, like kitchen magnets, was mine alone to drag across eternity. But as Zeus flicked water from his curls and Poseidon wrung out the hem of his tunic with practiced irritation, the realization arrived with quiet, undeniable clarity. Every god I have ever met has a parent-shaped bruise somewhere in their history. Every immortal carries a question they're afraid to ask. Every deity, no matter how powerful, eventually ends up sitting on a cold tile floor, staring at a dripping piece of technology, trying to understand why one childhood moment still echoes in the bones. And if we, the ancient, the terrible, the mythic, all turn to the same small glowing rectangle to make sense of it, perhaps that is not weakness. Perhaps it is simply what people do. I straightened, shoulders heavy but steadier. Fine, I said, because softness must be disguised. But next time one of you falls into a municipal appliance, I'm laughing first. Zeus grinned. Poseidon snorted. And somewhere deep in my pocket, just before I silenced it for good measure, ChatGPT gave one small, hopeful chime, as if it too understood that even elder gods sometimes need a witness. We walked on, three ridiculous immortals, united not by power, but by parents. And for the first time in a very long time, that felt almost comforting.